In this lecture, we'll be doing a bit of organizing and sorting to make sure our objects are easily selectable and easy to place. So here's where we got up to last time. Just incidentally, if I turn ray tracing off, you can see what happens to our model here and ray tracing on. That's some ambient occlusion in the crevices. It looks quite nice, I think, and works quite well. We used to have ambient occlusion and screen space reflections. That's been replaced with ray tracing in 4.2. Okay, so I'll go back to layout view for this, and I can turn on material preview mode in here. And let's start organizing some of these objects. So I've got a couple of rows of books at the moment. I want to group those together and use an empty to control them. And I'll do the same for the bottles because they got a bottle, the liquid, and the cork, and we'll then parent those to an empty. Okay, so let's start with the books. So just here, I'll go to front view, and I want my 3D cursor on this corner just here would make sense. So Shift A to add, empty. We can have something like a single arrow or maybe a circle. I think in this case, a single arrow might look quite good. Oh, I forgot to actually move my 3D cursor, did I? I'll undo that. Shift S cursor to selected, Shift A to add, empty, and single arrow. I think that will work well, and I'll be able to select all these objects just by selecting that one. So I'll grab them all, Control P to parent to that object. Now these are in the books collection, as you can see them there. We've got an empty, and that's got some more books underneath it. So this, in fact, I'll just quickly do that now with these books. And this is the active object here. Shift S cursor to selected. Oh, try that again. Shift S cursor to selected. So this one here. Shift A to add. And again, we'll have that arrow empty. And we'll select all and parent them to this empty. So Control P. Now we've got two empties. One here and one here. And I should be able to move these around so I can move all my books around. We've also got these cylinders, which I think are the candles. So I'll do a little bit of organizing. So move the candles into their own collection, new collection candles. They'll need an empty of their own as well. This can move to new collection orb on stand. And this one move to new collection bottle on stand. Now I think the orb on stand and the bottle on stand, I could move those into their own collection. Maybe, yes, so have them as perhaps have these three objects, these three collections in fact, in their own collection of accessories. I think that should work, yes. So we'll have a new collection, I'll add that in up here, and I'll call that accessories. Don't think I'm spelling things correctly, but it doesn't matter. So this is the book. So these are the books, aren't they? They need to go into the books collection. It's, what am I doing? Bottle on stand and orb on stand. I want to put into the accessories, and the candles as well. I want to put into the accessories. Okay, so there's a little bit more organizing there. My books, I want, in fact, that should, no, what I want to do, because it's a little bit awkward if I want to select all the books and duplicate them. It's fine if I want to move them here, but if I want to duplicate them, I need to select this, Shift G to select the children, and then select my empty last. Well, I suppose that's not too difficult, but we could put them into a sub collection that's always selectable. But because when you press Shift G, you've got an option of collection there, which might be a little bit easier, but I suppose that's not actually too difficult. So now we've got that collection set up. We could do with setting up our bottles into collections. So I'll select all these, move to new collection bottles, and press create. And will we want some sub collections? I'm not sure we do. We'll probably just want to, I'm just thinking actually, these, do they have, let's go into wireframe, Alt Z. X-ray mode not available. Sorry, it's I have to be in solid mode to use X-ray. I always say wireframe when I mean X-ray. but these don't actually need liquid inside them because they're not transmissive. So, but we still want to be able to move the bottle and the cork around together. Now we could join them together, but that gets quite complicated because this one has different modifiers to this one. And it's got a different color slot as well, so it just gets a little bit awkward. So again, we do want to actually have an empty that we move these around with them. So if I select this, Shift A to add, empty, could try something like a cube. I'll scale that down. Oh, I've forgotten to do that again. I'll just undo what I did there. I forgot to Shift S, cursor to selected. Lots of things I'm forgetting. Shift A to add, empty, and then let's see what a cube looks like. Will that help? I'm not sure that will help actually because it will be under the shelf. So actually we want an empty that sticks out the top would probably be easier. So I'll delete that, Shift A to add. And in fact, the single arrow works quite well, I think, because it can stick out the top. I'll just scale it down a little bit. So it's just sticking out the top like that. I think that will help. So then I can select these and Control P, parent the object. And now I can move this around nice and easily. I'll do the same for the other ones. So Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A to add, empty, plain, or single arrow. When I call it plain arrow, single arrow. I'll scale that down a little bit and parent. And I think I want to do that for each of these. I think that will be helpful. And we want the row underneath as well. I'm going to change it to individual origins and scale them in the Z. So I can do them all at the same time. These three are the same height as well. And now I can start selecting them and parenting them. Just make sure that your arrow or empty is the active object. Okay, so now's a good time to catch up with me, making sure that all your objects or groups of objects have empties to control them and move them onto different places. Okay, now I can start positioning these on the shelves. So the books and the bottles. We'll certainly want to duplicate some of them and move them around. So we will, when we duplicate, you can select your empty. I'll just go into material preview mode so you can see that a little bit easier. So you select your empty and then Shift G will take you to select group and you can select children. I don't think there's a way of selecting the empty as well. So you always have to select the empty again last and then you can duplicate it if you need to. And you can see that we've got some different colors there. You might want to go in and just scale some of these to make them slightly different. Or you can delete some even and then put some on the angle. We'll do that as we go. So let's start placing these onto the shelf. For this, we can use snapping. So if I go up to the top here, turn on snapping and snap to faces. Now when I press G to grab and move it, you can see it's snapping to different faces. I'll make that a little bit clearer. I'll move roughly to the shelf there, zoom in a bit, and again, G to grab, and I can move it to the corner here and scale them all down. And again, I'll zoom in on that and see what that looks like. I think that's quite successful. Let's scale in the Z. So they're nice toolbooks now. And that looks good. So let's say I want to duplicate these. Remember, Shift G to select the children and then select the empty last. Shift D to duplicate in the Z, bring that down and it snaps to that face there. And we might want to do a little bit of editing here. To turn snapping off and on quickly, you can press Shift Tab. And you can see up there, it's turned snapping off. So Shift Tab. Snapping's turned on again. Just noticed that my screencast keys aren't on, so I'll just quickly turn those on. And let's delete this middle book here. Select this one, R, then Y. Rotate that, and maybe scale it in the local Z, so it just looks that bit different. Maybe I'll scale this one down and I'll scale Z. In fact, let's scale a different one up. I think that will look better. There we go. So we've got a different looking set of books. And we should have some random colors, although we've got a lot of green going on here, but that's okay. Now on some other shelves, I've got lots of variety here, lots of bottles at the top and jars as well. We can move those up as we see fit. Let's move some bottles in just for the sake of trying things out. So I'll select this bottle here. You could use Alt D and it could be always linked to this particular bottle, but I'll use Shift D in this case. So I think, oh, got to select them both, of course. I might have an extra empty now. I'm just going to undo that. Let's do that again. So make sure my empty is the active object, Shift D, and then select the empty, and make sure the snapping's turned on, G to grab, and let's put this one on top, shall we? Zoom in and put it on top. Okay, so that's how we can move objects into position. I'm not going to move too many in, I'm just using that as an example for now, because we'll probably want to color these in a little bit first before we start placing them and having lots of duplicates that we have to link the materials for. So that's just a starting point to see how you can move on and do those different things. So as always, make sure you've caught up with me and that you've saved your work ready for next time.